Hi, everyone. Welcome to Type Talks. Today, we're here to talk about signs you're not an EP. And so these would be the ENFP, ESTP, ENTP, and ESFP types.
Okay, so to wrap up this series, we're going to do some review in this video. So looking at signs you're not an EP, we're going to highlight some of the other types and review some of the points we've made in some of the other videos to serve as sort of a bookend in this series. So the first sign you're not an EP is you hold back from interacting or playing with your environment until you've assessed the situation. So this would be engaging in things like bantering, reacting immediately to stimulus. That's something that an EP does do. So if that's something you tend to hold back in doing, probably not an EP. So if you do experiment with or mess around with what's around you often, then you're probably an EP. If you tend to hold back and maybe consider before you engage, then probably not an EP.
Yeah, and a lot of factors can influence this. So if you have trauma, you could also be an EP who just holds back your desire to interact and play with sensory stimulus or abstract material because throughout life you've been too much for other people. But yeah, generally EPs like to banter and they like to have that back and forth with their environment because they like to play with their environment. And so the second sign is that you stick to the tried and true way and you are a diligent rule follower. And so this is an ISJ trait typically. ISJ types, they're known for liking routine or liking traditions because there is safety in the known and the expected. And for IJ types, they also like it because it helps them fly under the radar, where some IP types might fall into this as well when avoiding their auxiliary function, and they can get into a routine or comfortable lifestyle that's the same every single day. But for EPs, this is never a natural state. It can be that they're in the grip of their inferior function.
So yeah, sometimes an EP, when they're really stressed out, can really hyper focus on the details and on schedules, but that tends to be a stress state, not a natural state. And the third sign that you're not an EP is you really don't care for exploration and you lack an openness to new stimuli, especially when it's unexpected. So everyone might be okay with exploration and new stimuli, but some people really need it to be expected stimuli. They need to be able to prepare for it. And that tends to be, again, an IJ trait. So all types can have spikes of spontaneity and a need for the new, but EPs require it. It's something that really gets them in a flow state. If they have too much sameness, restlessness sets in. IJs need to plan and prepare before they engage. So they often resist spontaneity initially, but then they'll warm up to it when they're given some warning or some time to consider that possibility. IPs, different than IJs, have more of a push-pull here. So IPs often really enjoy spontaneity, but they also find comfort in being prepared first. So they're a little bit more aware, they're a little bit more conscious of potential consequences, and they tend to be a little bit more aware of safety and err on the side of safety compared to an EP. So often for IPs, engaging in outer world stimuli sometimes requires a bit of a push, either that they're pushing themselves or that someone outside of themselves are pushing them into. They don't just naturally go there out of the gate. And then EJs can definitely play here, and they often enjoy spontaneity. But EJs at their best find comfort in and really strive for order in general. There's often a balance of order and chaos for an EJ, depending on the setting. EPs can mistype then as EJs and vice versa, because there's a tendency in people to over-identify with their tertiary function and really associate that and even see themselves as that type.
Exactly, Diane. And so EPs really have an openness to experience or openness to new ideas because that's where the stimulation happens. EPs are open to the spectrum of novelty and variety. They're open to thrusting themselves into the unknown. And so the fourth sign is you bring order wherever you go. And this is typically an EJ trait. Extroverted judging, whether it's TE or FE, is known for outer control. They're about creating a system where people get their needs met, whether it's in a TE way of getting things done or in an FE way of making people feel good. And so they actually bring structure, the EJ types, to the situations they're a part of. Whereas for the EPs, they're the masters of chaos, of mischief, of mayhem. Order is limiting for them. They can take on the role of helping create structure if needed, but find it tiring or limiting or irritating rather quickly because they're leaning too much into their tertiary function. And so, for instance, an ENTP can try to manage people's emotions, but they can get very tired of it. They can manage for bursts, but they don't prefer it. They prefer to give people freedom because they like freedom.
Yeah, ENFPs or ESTPs may take pride in their ability to really be able to bring the group together and bring up the energy in the group, make the group feel good. But as you said, Joyce, it always tends to be an energy drain rather than an energy gain. So they tend to enjoy it, but also it ends up costing them in the end. Whereas for an EJ, those are really their flow state. So when they're able to engage a group and really move a group together in the same direction, that's energizing rather than exhausting. So that's a big distinguisher, EJ versus EP. And the fifth point is that you understand yourself well and you're good at prioritizing your own needs. Typically, this is not something that EPs will report. This is more of an IP trait. IPs are really the best at understanding themselves on a deep level and checking in with themselves to get their own needs met. This is a skill that IPs have, and EPs tend to struggle with that a little bit more. They struggle a little bit more with people pleasing. And EJs tend to be often the worst at this. So EJs tend to struggle to see that they even have needs until they're slapped in the face with them. They struggle to really know themselves. Their personal likes and dislikes can be a struggle. So sometimes an ETJ can be better having FI than an EFJ at really understanding their personal likes and dislikes. And then IJs are better at understanding personal preferences and personal beliefs, but then they struggle with sort of the self and tribe balance. There's always that push and pull, similar to what an EP can struggle with in that way. And then EPs can defer to the group needs over their own, especially in social settings. So again, people pleasing or taskmasters often come out of EPs, but then they're left feeling a bit empty because they were serving the group over their own needs. And so really EPs tend to struggle often with knowing themselves well, unless they really take the time and put the energy into working on that second function and really developing it and understanding their own thoughts, their own logic, their own values. And sometimes even in an unhealthy situation for an EP, they might even manipulate the group for their own benefit or bulldoze. And this can be a sign that maybe there's some personal development that could be done to help improve the outcome for these EP tendencies.
EPs tend to have difficulty being in tune with themselves, and it's something that they have to grow into because they can sometimes focus on the external world too much to the detriment of themselves. All right. And so thank you, Diane, for your wonderful insights and your fabulous recap of the other videos that we've done. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.